I never imagined that the people who raised me, the people I trusted with my heart and my future, would be the same people who would steal everything my father left behind. My own family secretly sold my inheritance, emptied accounts that carried my name, and used my father's final gift to rescue my younger brother from the mountain of debt he created. They thought I would never discover the truth. They thought because they were my family, they could do anything and I would stay silent. But they forgot one thing: justice does not care about family names. And when the truth finally came out, the same people who destroyed my life had to face the consequences of their own choices. This is the story of how my family betrayed me, how I uncovered their biggest secret, and how the law finally gave me the justice I deserved. Before we begin, make sure you watch this story until the end because the final courtroom moment changed everything. If you enjoy emotional family betrayal stories, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another powerful story like this. Now, let me take you back to where everything started. My name is Daniel Carter, and I was born and raised in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio. Growing up, I believed my family was normal. My father, Robert Carter, was a hardworking man who spent more than 30 years building a successful construction company. He was not a rich celebrity or someone who showed off his money. He was the kind of person who woke up before sunrise, worked with his hands, and saved every dollar because he wanted his children to have a better life than he did. My mother, Linda, was a loving woman, but she always had one weakness: my younger brother, Michael. Michael was 4 years younger than me, and from childhood, he was treated differently. If Michael made a mistake, my parents found an excuse. If I made a mistake, I was expected to learn from it. At first, I didn't understand why. I thought maybe it was because Michael was younger. But as we grew older, I started noticing a pattern. Whenever Michael needed help, my parents were always there. When he failed his first business, my father gave him money. When he bought an expensive car he couldn't afford, my mother defended him. When he got into financial trouble, everyone looked at me and said, "Daniel, you're the responsible one. You understand. Help your brother." And I always did. Because I loved my family, I never thought that one day they would use that love against me. My father's last promise. 3 years before everything changed, my father became seriously ill. He was diagnosed with a heart condition that slowly weakened him. During those months, I spent most of my time taking him to doctor appointments, helping around the house, and sitting with him during difficult nights. Michael was different. He visited when it was convenient. He always had excuses. Work is busy. I have things to handle. I'll come next week, but next week rarely came. One evening, while I was sitting beside my father in the hospital room, he grabbed my hand and looked directly into my eyes. "Daniel," he said quietly, "I need you to promise me something." "What, Dad?" "Never let anyone make you feel guilty for doing what is right." I didn't understand what he meant. I thought he was just talking about life. But later, I realized my father knew something was wrong. Before he passed away, he created a legal will. According to that will, he left his house, part of his company shares, and a savings account to me. Not because he loved me more than Michael, but because he knew I was the one who stood beside him when he needed someone. He also left Michael a separate amount of money and wanted him to learn responsibility. My father's final wish was simple: that his children would respect each other and move forward. But my family had other plans. The day everything changed. After my father's funeral, my mother hugged me and said, "Your father wanted us to stay together." I believed her. I thought we were going to protect each other during the hardest time of our lives. I had no idea that behind those emotional words, a betrayal was already happening. A few weeks later, my mother called me. Her voice sounded nervous. "Daniel, we need to talk about your father's estate." I immediately felt something was wrong. "What happened?" She paused. "Your brother is going through a difficult situation." I closed my eyes. I already knew what was coming. What kind of situation? Michael had accumulated thousands of dollars in business debt, loans, credit cards, unpaid bills. And instead of letting him face the consequences, my mother wanted to use my father's inheritance to save him. "Daniel, you need to understand," she said. "Family helps family," I replied. "Mom, Dad made his decision. That money was left to me." She became quiet. Then she said something I will never forget. "Your father would want you to sacrifice for your brother." Those words hurt, because they were not asking for kindness. They were demanding my inheritance. I never expected my own mother to become the person standing between me and my father's final wishes. For years, I had believed that family meant loyalty. I believed that when times became difficult, we would protect each other. But that conversation changed something inside me. Because I finally realized something painful. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who know exactly how to hurt you. A few days after my mother asked me to give up my inheritance, I decided to talk directly with Michael. I found him sitting at a coffee shop near his apartment. He looked tired. His clothes were expensive, but his face showed stress. "Michael, what is really happening?" I asked. He avoided eye contact. "What do you mean?" "Mom told me about your financial problems." He sighed. "Daniel, I just need some help. It's not a big deal." I looked at him and asked, "How much debt are we talking about?" He stayed silent. Then he finally admitted, "Almost $180,000. I couldn't believe it. "Michael, how did this happen?" He started explaining about failed investments, business loans, and poor decisions. I felt sorry for him. He was my brother. But feeling sorry for someone does not mean allowing them to destroy your future. "I'll help you find a solution," I told him. "But using Dad's inheritance is not the answer." His expression changed. "You always think you're better than me." I was shocked. "That's not what I said. You got everything, Daniel. Dad trusted you. Dad gave you the business shares, the house, the money." I stared at him. "Because I was taking care of him when you were gone." The moment those words left my mouth, I regretted saying them. Because deep inside, I knew the truth hurt him. But what happened next hurt me even more. Michael stood up and said, "Maybe Dad made the wrong choice." Then he walked away. After that conversation, I started feeling uneasy. My mother stopped answering my questions. Whenever I asked about the estate paperwork, she changed the subject. One afternoon, I called the attorney who handled my father's will. "Mr. Carter, I wanted to confirm something about my father's inheritance." There was a pause on the phone. Then the attorney said, "Daniel, I thought you already knew." My heart started beating faster. "Knew what?" "The property transfer documents were recently changed." I froze. "What documents?" "The house ownership paperwork." I could barely speak. "Who requested the changes?" The attorney hesitated. "Your mother." My hands became cold. "Are you saying my mother changed my father's documents?" "No, I'm saying someone submitted paperwork claiming authority over the estate." "Who?" Another pause. Then he said, "Your brother." The discovery. The next morning, I drove straight to my father's old house. The house where I grew up. The house where my father spent 30 years building memories. When I arrived, I saw a moving truck outside. I felt my stomach drop. I walked inside and saw strangers carrying furniture. "What is happening here?" A man holding a clipboard looked at me. "We were hired to remove the remaining items." "By who?" He checked the papers. "Linda Carter." My mother, I couldn't believe it. "This house belongs to me." The worker looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, sir, but we have documents." "Show me." He handed me the paperwork. I looked at the pages. There was my mother's signature, and my brother's name. They had transferred ownership of the property, without telling me, without my permission, without respecting my father's final wishes. The moment I realized I was betrayed, I called my mother immediately. She answered after several rings. "Daniel? Mom, what did you do?" Silence. "What are you talking about?" "The house, the documents, the sale." She took a deep breath. "Daniel, please understand. Michael needed this." I felt like the entire world stopped. "You sold Dad's house to pay Michael's debts. It wasn't like that?" "Then what was it like?" She became defensive. "Your brother was about to lose everything. And you decided I should lose everything instead?" She didn't answer. That silence told me everything. Searching for the truth. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept looking at my father's old photographs, the memories, the promises, everything he built. I knew my father would never want his final gift stolen from one child to save another child's mistakes. The next morning, I contacted an estate lawyer. Her name was Sarah Mitchell. After reviewing the documents, she looked serious. "Daniel, I need you to understand something." "What?" "If these documents were created using false information or without proper authority, this could be considered fraud." I stared at her. "Are you saying my family committed fraud?" She looked at the paperwork again. "I'm saying we need to investigate." For the first time in weeks, I felt a small piece of hope. Because I finally understood this was not just a family argument anymore. This was about the law. And if my family had broken the law, they would have to answer for it. For the first time since my father passed away, I stopped feeling helpless. I had spent weeks asking myself the same questions. Why would my mother do this? How could my brother accept something that was never his? And the biggest question, how far did they go to hide the truth? I knew the answers were somewhere inside the documents, the financial records, and the decisions they had made behind my back. And I was determined to find them. The following Monday, I sat across from Sarah Mitchell in her law office. She placed several folders on the table. "Daniel, before we move forward, I need you to understand something," she said. "What?" "Family cases are emotionally difficult. You may discover things you are not prepared to see." I looked at the files. "After what they did, I already know the truth will hurt." She nodded. "Then let's find it." She began reviewing every document connected to my father's estate, the original will, the property records, the bank statements, the transfer forms. After several hours, she found something unusual. "Daniel, look at this." She pointed at a document. "This transfer happened only 2 weeks after your father's death." I looked closely. "That's impossible. My father's estate was still being processed." "Exactly." She explained that certain assets could not legally be transferred without proper approval. Someone had rushed the process. Someone had tried to move things quickly before anyone noticed. Then Sarah discovered something even more shocking. "Your father had another account." I looked confused. "What account?" "A business savings account connected to his construction company." I shook my head. I knew about the company account, but not a separate savings account. She showed me the records. The account had contained nearly $95,000. My father had created it years earlier as an emergency fund, but after his death, the money disappeared. "When was it withdrawn?" I asked. Sarah looked at the date. 3 days after the funeral." My heart sank. "Who withdrew it?" She looked at me. "Your brother." I didn't wait. I drove straight to Michael's house. When he opened the door and saw me, his expression changed. "What are you doing here?" I held up the bank records. "I know about the money." His face went pale. "What money?" "The $95,000 from Dad's account." For a moment, he said nothing. Then he stepped outside and closed the door behind him. "Daniel, you don't understand." "Then explain it." "I needed it." I stared at him. "You stole from Dad's estate." "No, I didn't." "Then why was the money transferred into your account?" He became angry. "Because Mom told me to do it." Those words stopped me. "What did you say?" Michael looked away. "Mom said Dad would have wanted me to use it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "So both of you planned this?" He became defensive. "It wasn't a plan." "Then what was it?" He didn't answer. Because he knew. A week later, Sarah received a surprising piece of evidence. One of the estate office employees remembered a conversation between my mother and Michael. The employee had noticed something strange during a meeting. My mother had asked, "How quickly can we transfer the assets before Daniel finds out?" When Sarah told me this, I felt a mixture of anger and sadness. Not because they wanted money, but because they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew they were hiding something from me. They knew my father's wishes mattered, and they still chose themselves. Sarah filed a legal request to freeze the remaining assets. The court agreed to review the situation. For the first time, my family realized they could not simply ignore me. My mother called me that night. Her voice was different, not angry, not confident, scared. "Daniel, why are you doing this?" I stayed quiet. "Why are you taking your own family to court?" I answered, "Because my family took me to court first. They just did it secretly." She started crying. "Michael needed help," I replied. "Mom, helping someone does not mean destroying someone else." There was silence. Then she said something that broke my heart. "We thought you would forgive us." I closed my eyes. They never thought about whether it was wrong. They only thought I would accept it. During the investigation, Sarah discovered one final piece of information. A hidden agreement between Michael and my mother. It showed that they planned to sell my father's property and use the money to clear Michael's debts. The document had dates, signatures, financial details, everything. Sarah placed it on the table and said, "Daniel, this changes the entire case." I looked at the paper. My family had not made a mistake. They had made a decision to betray me, and now they would have to explain that decision in court. The day of the hearing arrived faster than I expected. For months, I had been fighting a battle I never wanted to fight. A battle against strangers would have been easier, but this was different. I wasn't standing across from criminals I didn't know. I was standing across from my own mother and my own brother, the two people I once believed would always protect me. The courtroom was quiet when I walked inside. I looked across the room and saw my mother sitting beside Michael. My mother looked older. The confidence she once had was gone. Michael avoided looking at me. For a moment, I remembered our childhood, playing together, celebrating birthdays, family vacations. All those memories felt distant now. The judge entered the courtroom and everyone stood. The case officially began. My family's lawyer stood up first. He tried to make the situation sound like a simple misunderstanding. Your Honor, this is a family dispute. There was no intention to harm Mr. Carter. I listened carefully. No intention. They had hidden documents, transferred money, sold property, and now they wanted everyone to believe it was an accident. Then Sarah stood. Your Honor, this was not a misunderstanding. This was a deliberate attempt to take control of assets that did not belong to them. She placed documents on the table. The judge reviewed them, the first evidence. Sarah presented the original will, my father's final wishes. Then she showed the altered property documents. These documents were submitted without the legal authority required, she explained. The judge looked at my mother. Mrs. Carter, did you authorize this transfer? My mother looked nervous. I was only trying to help my son. The judge replied, helping your son does not give you permission to ignore the law. The courtroom became silent, my brother's testimony. Then Michael was called to speak. He walked slowly toward the witness stand. I looked at him. The person I had defended my entire life. The person I had helped many times. Now he had to answer questions about what he did. Sarah asked, Mr. Carter, did you withdraw money from your father's account after his death? Michael looked down. Yes. Did you have permission from the estate? He hesitated. No. Then why did you do it? Michael took a deep breath. Because I was desperate. Sarah continued, desperation does not make theft legal, correct? He had no answer. My mother's emotional statement. Then came the hardest moment. My mother took the stand. She started crying before she even answered a question. Daniel was always the strong one, she said. He had a good job, he was responsible. Michael was struggling. She looked toward me. I thought Daniel would understand. Those words hurt more than anything. Because once again, she was explaining why she chose Michael, not why she betrayed me. Sarah asked, Mrs. Carter, did you inform Daniel before transferring his inheritance? My mother stayed silent. No. Did Daniel give you permission? No. Did you know your actions could affect his legal rights? She whispered, yes. That single word changed everything. The final piece of evidence. Then Sarah presented the document that shocked everyone. The secret agreement between my mother and brother. The agreement proving they had planned everything. The courtroom became completely silent. My brother looked at my mother. My mother looked at the floor. The judge carefully read the document. Then he said, this evidence indicates that this was not a misunderstanding. This was a coordinated action. Those words felt like the truth finally being recognized. For months, I had been called selfish, cold, unforgiving, but now the truth was clear. I wasn't fighting my family. I was fighting what they had done. The judge's decision. After reviewing all evidence, the judge made his decision. The property transfer was canceled. The stolen funds had to be returned to the estate. My brother was ordered to repay the money taken from my father's account. My mother was held legally responsible for approving unauthorized transfers. The inheritance my father left me was protected. Justice had finally arrived. But winning the case did not erase the pain. Because some wounds are not created by enemies. Some wounds come from the people you trusted the most. The unexpected conversation. After the hearing, my mother came toward me. Her eyes were filled with tears. Daniel, I know I hurt you. I looked at her. For years, I had wanted an apology. But standing there, I realized something. An apology could not bring back the trust that was destroyed. I loved you, Mom, I said. And that's why this hurt so much. She started crying. I made a mistake. I nodded. Yes, you did. Then I walked away, not because I hated her, but because I finally learned that protecting your family does not mean allowing them to destroy you. Part 5, the aftermath, broken relationships, new beginning, and the powerful final lesson. Winning the court case gave me back what my father wanted me to have, the house, the money, the company's shares, but the truth was, the most valuable thing I lost was something money could never replace. Trust. Life after the court decision. After the judge made his decision, everything changed. The same relatives who once called me selfish suddenly started seeing the truth. Some apologized. Some stopped contacting me. Some said I should have handled things privately. But I learned something important. People often support peace only when they are not the ones being hurt. For months, I carried the pain of betrayal while everyone expected me to stay quiet. They wanted me to forgive before they even admitted what they had done. But forgiveness without accountability means allowing someone to repeat the same damage. Rebuilding my father's dream. A few months later, I returned to my father's old house. I stood in the living room where we had celebrated birthdays and holidays. Everything reminded me of him. His old chair was still there. The small workshop in the backyard was still filled with his tools. I remembered something he told me years earlier. Daniel, money is temporary. What you build with honesty lasts forever. Those words stayed with me. Instead of selling the house, I decided to restore it. I repaired the rooms. I fixed the backyard. I turned part of the property into a small community workshop where young people could learn construction skills. It was my way of honoring my father, not by protecting the money, but by protecting his values. My brother's reality. Michael's life changed completely after the court decision. Without the money he expected to receive, he had to face his own choices. For the first time, nobody was there to rescue him. No quick solution, no family money, no excuses. He had to work. Months later, he contacted me. I want to talk. I agreed to meet him. We sat across from each other at a quiet restaurant. He looked different, more humble, more serious. I was wrong, Daniel, he said. I convinced myself that I deserved help because I was struggling. He looked down, but I forgot that my problems came from my own decisions. I listened quietly. Then he said, I don't expect you to forgive me immediately. That was the first time I felt he truly understood. Not because he lost money, but because he finally accepted responsibility. My mother's regret. My mother struggled the most. She lost the trust of both her children. She always believed she was protecting Michael. But in reality, she damaged the entire family. One evening, she called me. Daniel, I need to tell you something. What? Your father knew Michael needed to learn responsibility. I became silent. She continued, I found a letter your father wrote before he died. My heart stopped. A letter? Yes, he wrote it for both of you. She sent me a copy. Inside the letter, my father had written, My sons, I hope you understand that love does not mean removing every obstacle from someone's path. Sometimes the hardest lessons create the strongest people. I read those words again and again, because my father had understood everything. He knew Michael needed consequences. He knew responsibility was more valuable than being rescued. And my family ignored the one lesson he wanted us to learn. The final conversation with my mother. A few weeks later, I met my mother. She looked emotional. I wish I could go back and change everything. I looked at her and said, I wish you had trusted me enough to tell me the truth. She started crying. I was afraid of losing Michael. I replied, and you lost me instead. Those words were painful, but they were true. For years, I had been expected to understand everyone else's feelings, but nobody had stopped to understand mine. A new beginning. 1 year after my father's death, I stood outside the house again. This time, it didn't feel like a place of betrayal. It felt like a place of healing. I had learned that justice is not always about punishing people. Sometimes justice is about protecting yourself, about standing up when someone crosses a line, about refusing to let love become an excuse for unfairness. My family made a choice. They chose money over honesty. They chose secrets over trust, and they paid the price. Final message. If there is one lesson I learned from this painful experience, it is this. Never allow anyone, even someone you love, to convince you that protecting yourself is wrong. Family is important. Love is important. But respect and honesty are the foundation of every relationship. My father left me an inheritance, but the greatest gift he gave me was the courage to stand for what was right. And in the end, my family tried to steal my inheritance. But justice gave me something much more valuable. My voice, my dignity, and my future.